a new era of exploration, the first human moon mission in 53 years.
Artemis II crew is go for launch.
3, 2, 1, booster ignition, and liftoff. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Oh my God. Core stage separated.
With this burn to the moon, we do not leave Earth. We choose it.
Looks like a good burn.
We surpassed the furthest distance humans have ever traveled from planet Earth.
To watch the moon grow is exciting. That's our destination. That's where we're locked on to.
Hi, thanks for joining us. History made many times over. Not only has the crew of Artemis II traveled farther from Earth than any human before them, but they are also about to make their closest approach to the moon of the mission. The crew has already traveled more than 249,000 miles from Earth over the past 6 days as the Orion capsule continues its path around the far side of the moon. At its closest approach, the crew will be just over 4,000 miles from the lunar surface. For perspective, that means the moon will appear to be roughly the size of a basketball when it's held out at arm's length. For about 40 minutes during this time, comms with Mission Control in Houston will go dark. It will happen while the crew is doing that flyby of the far side. Because the far side has been too dark to see in previous missions, the Artemis II crew is tasked with taking thousands of pictures and recording their observations as they make their way around it. In just over an hour, the crew will reach its furthest point from home, which is 252,760 miles from Earth's surface. The previous record was set by the Apollo 13 crew almost 56 years ago to the day. Then they will use the moon's own gravitational pull to slingshot back to Earth. Tomorrow, day 7, is technically a day off for the crew, aside from conferencing with NASA on what they witnessed today. Let's bring in CBS News space contributor Bill Harwood. Bill, what has been the most exciting thing that you have heard from the communications between Mission Control and Orion today?
Well, actually, I think the most exciting thing we're going to hear is coming up. As you said, in about an hour, they'll be, as close as they're going to get. And in about 45 minutes, they're going to disappear around the leading edge of the moon, cut off all contact with Earth. They'll be as alone as you can be in this solar system. So I won't be able to hear what they're saying then. But I think as they really get close to this, to the center of the far side, that's what I'm interested in. It's this, the view they're going to have is already tremendous. It's going to be fantastic down there.
Why can't they go any closer? And obviously put that into context with us of how close this is. But I'm sure that there might be a part of them inside that capsule that thinks, oh, I just want to keep going.
I don't have any doubt about that, Lindsay. You know, the thing about this flight is it's a test flight. They don't have the ability to get into and out of a low moon orbit. Like the Apollo crews did. They just don't have that kind of power with the service module engine on the Orion. So basically, they were launched onto what they call a free return trajectory. In other words, they designed it so that as soon as they headed for the moon, they were locked into the same path that's going to bring them back to splashdown April 10th off the coast of San Diego. So all of that's kind of set. This is just orbital mechanics in motion, if you will. And it turns out that that altitude is just the way it worked out. Certainly future flights, when they land on the moon, they will, of course, go lower than that to get in landers that will then take them down to the surface. But for this test flight, they picked the most, I won't call it the safest. I mean, none of this is particularly safe if you want to think about it that way. It's a high-risk endeavor, but they picked the safest route they could go with the vehicle that had never flown with people before. This is a first for the Orion capsule.
And so what you're most excited about is happening here in the next hour. After that, what do the next few days look like?
Well, you know, first of all, they're going to leave the moon behind when they come back into contact with Earth. That the lunar gravity, as you said, is going to bend that trajectory around to line them very precisely up for reentry. They're going to take a little bit of time off, and they're going to spend a fair amount of time with the scientists on the ground going over their observations. A lot of this really comes down to what they see with the human eye. You know, that's the thing. You know, we've had satellites in orbit around the moon that have really mapped the entire moon in great detail. But what they're hoping is that the human eye can capture some nuances that those imaging cameras just can't pick up. And so they're going to spend some time talking to the scientists about all that, take some time off, and then before you know it, it's going to be time to start packing up to come home. You know, when we see these shots inside that capsule, you can tell it's a fairly cramped place. They got to set the seats back up. They got to pull out those big bulky pressure suits, you know, all of that, put away all of the cameras and all the other gear. And that takes a couple of days. So, you know, once they get all the way around the moon, come back out the other side later tonight. I don't want to say it's all downhill from there because it actually is, you know, literally. But it'll be a much more relaxed workload.
Bill Harwood, thank you so much. CBS News senior national correspondent Mark Strassman spoke with the Artemis astronauts Saturday, and he began with the immense popularity of the mission and what has stood out to the crew members about what they've seen so far.
So many people on Earth are living this moment through your experiences. So on a personal level, since leaving Earth's orbit, what have you been most struck by, and what has been the biggest surprise?
Oh, I definitely think the thing that I have been most struck by was, I'm going to steal Jeremy's answer right here, but on Translunar Injection Day, you know, before we did that translunar injection burn, give me a second for the technical, and then I'll get to the artistic, but we're 38 miles from Earth, and then we got to come down to just 100 miles from Earth and do that translunar injection burn, and then we head out to the moon. And just that entire time, I mean, you could look away from the window and then look back, and Earth was bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, Jeremy goes, I'm not sure if we're going to go around it or hit it. I mean, we're going right at the Earth. That translunar injection burn, we were just 100 miles up. That's not anywhere near the height of the International Space Station. We were under the International Space Station. They were just screaming right above the clouds, and that burn went off. And then just moments later, we look back, and we're already 30,000 miles from Earth heading to the moon. Like, blew us all away.
You know, Mark, I think one of the things that has struck me, there's so many amazing and so many profound things that we've seen and felt on this mission. But something else that just stays with me is a lot of us were excited to see Jeremy's expression or reaction to looking out at Earth from space, you know, being the first-time flyer. But the difference between Jeremy and someone who's never flown, but all of us, all four of us, and someone who's never flown is essentially equal. The three of us space before, I think, feel just as amazed to be up here and to see some of the sights that we've seen. And so even though we lived on space station for a collective 2 years, we have seen and felt things that we have never felt before.
I can't get enough of those descriptions. As the astronauts of Artemis II prepare to cross another historic milestone tonight, we wanted to take a look at how we got to this moment. Artemis II set off on this historic journey 6 days ago from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Wednesday's launch at 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time came after nearly 16 years of planning to send humans back to the moon. The actual liftoff, surprisingly smooth sailing, even according to a couple of the astronauts on board. But they did experience a very earthbound problem early on, a broken toilet pump. Astronaut Christina Cook jokingly called herself the proud space plumber on Thursday during a virtual call after helping with the pump fix. On day 2 of the journey, the spacecraft completed a process, as we just heard from Reed there, called the translunar injection burn. The astronauts burned Orion's main engine, allowing them to leave Earth's atmosphere and gravitational pull to set a path for the moon. And the past few days have been filled with space experiments and breathtaking views. But alas, toilet problems have persisted. NASA's been trying to troubleshoot the more technical issues. Astronauts got the all clear for the toilet use again just after midnight Sunday, but the commodes were on the fritz again today. In the early hours of this morning, the Artemis II crew reached an area called the Lunar sphere of influence, which is when the moon's gravitational pull is stronger than the Earth's. That occurred about 41,000 miles away from the moon. And earlier today, astronauts aboard the Artemis II broke the record for the farthest distance humans have ever traveled from Earth. According to NASA, the Apollo 13 set the prior record at 248,655 miles away in 1970. The astronauts were woken up this morning by a special message left from astronaut Jim Lovell, who was a part of the Apollo 13 crew that set the last record. When Artemis II reaches its max distance tonight, it'll be 252,760 miles away from Earth. Let's bring in Derek Pitts for more on this. He's the chief astronomer at the Franklin Institute. Derek, always good to see you. So this crew, they're witnessing parts of the far side of the moon that some humans have never laid their eyes on, that no human, I should say, has ever laid eyes on. What are you looking for in terms of the descriptions they're saying or the images that they send back? What are you most interested in?
I'm looking for the subtle features that they can see with their eyes that haven't been detectable either through satellite or a telescope or any other means. In fact, Christina Koch said that as she looked at the surface, she could see that it appeared browner than it did when they were a little bit further out. So it's details like those. And in fact, one of the other astronauts described that the ring of mountains around the Oriental Basin looked as if loads of snow had been dropped on the inner edge. So it's those kinds of descriptions that help scientists back on Earth better characterize the moon and better understand the moon. So it's those kind of details that I'm looking to hear more about.
And we're learning terminology that we may have either forgotten or never learned. Terminator is one. Albedo, I think I'm saying it right. Well, can you tell us what these mean in the context that we're hearing them?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's very simple. Terminator is the line that separates the light portion of the moon from the dark portion of the moon. You can see in the image right now that on the right side there, you can see how the moon is illuminated, and then there's the darker left side. Well, the line that separates the two is called the terminator. It essentially is the sunset or the sunrise line. So on this side of the moon, it could be the sunset line. And we see this here on Earth, too. We have the same thing. And albedo. Albedo refers to the reflectiveness of the surface of the body. So a high albedo object is something that reflects a lot. Low albedo is very low reflectance.
Thank you for explaining that in layman's terms. So tell us also about the redundancy here between the photographs and the audible observations, because I know when I try to capture something like a sunset, it never does it justice. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that is the whole idea because, cameras, as good as they are, still can't pick up the subtleties that the human eye can pick up. So it's really important for the astronauts to give very, very long descriptions of what they're seeing so they can put into their descriptions everything about what they're seeing they can observe so that can be compared with the photographs. And in that way, they can sort of align up what they're seeing with what is shown in the camera, and they can add that extra layer of detail that can't be seen in the picture. And this is really important because it helps to stitch together a lot of what different kinds of observations are made by the different astronauts, because they will pick up different observations from each one of them. So it's good to have all four of them together.
And we will be hearing more from Derek Pitts as well as Bill Harwood throughout our 2-hour special here. Derek, we'll see you again soon. Thank you. So how is the crew preparing for their flyby? Our Chris Van Cleve went inside the Orion mission simulator to get a look at how they were able to get ready to make history and what it's going to take to snap that perfect pic. Our special edition of the Daily Report returns in 60 seconds.
So we lost a loved one. Her name was Carol. The spouse of Reed, the mother of Katie and Ellie. And if you want to find this one, you look at Glushko, and it's just to the northwest of that, at the same latitude as Ohm, and it's a bright spot on the moon. And we would like to call it Carol.
Wow. Not a dry eye in the control room when that happened, and even here, an emotional moment for the Artemis II crew, because what you just heard was mission specialist Jeremy Hansen radioing to mission control to propose names for 2 unnamed moon craters. One of the names, Carol, the late wife of Commander Reed Wiseman, who you see on your screen. And the crew could be seen wiping tears from their eyes as Hansen spoke, his voice breaking at times. Carol died from cancer in 2020, leaving behind her husband and 2 daughters. Commander Wiseman spoke to our Mark Strassman before this mission's launch about how his wife supported him on his journey as an astronaut, even as she was starting to get sick.
I wanted to move us back towards where her family was from, and she's like, no, this is where you work, this is the job you love, this is where you work, and this is where our kids are growing up, and we are going to stay right here. To me, that was marching orders. That day, that was marching orders to continue down this path.
Here's a look at those craters. The proposed name for the second one, Integrity, after the crew's spacecraft. NASA says after the mission is completed, the crater name proposals will be formally submitted to the organization that governs the naming of celestial bodies and their surface features. Let's bring in retired NASA astronaut Katie Coleman. She's flown on 2 space shuttle missions, one of which included a 6-month stay at the International Space Station. And that moment, so moving. I think of you all astronauts as geniuses, but at the end of the day, you guys are just like us, and you have these incredible stories and paths that get you here. How did that moment resonate for you?
Well, I certainly cried as well, and it was a surprise. I didn't know about it. I think it's wonderful, and I think it's wonderful to bring attention to families. Yeah. When I was flying on the space station, I often got asked, how I felt about leaving my family behind on Earth, and at a 10-year-old and a 27-year-old, and I was like, it's hard. It's really hard, and I think it's hard for the guys that they don't get asked that question, because it's, in the end, for our space station crew, the fact that we all leave someone down on the ground that we care about, that's what brought us together, because we're all, it's the very humanity of us, and I'm glad that this crew brings it front and center.
Me too. I mean, I think probably behind every astronaut is a family who they can only do this because of that love and support that they get. What can you tell us about the relationships that they're building up there?
It's been just such a pleasure to watch this crew through training. I mean, I'm retired, right? And so I see them in glimpses. I saw them at South by Southwest. I saw them at different places. And you can just tell, I mean, they understand the responsibility and the privilege that they have to be these people. And having been there, not the moon, right, but been part of a crew, a NASA crew, I can see how they are going not just the extra mile, but the extra marathon to bring everyone else with them. And I appreciate that just because when I look back at the Earth from my stay up on the space station, it's just so clear that everyone but us is down there. And if only they knew how connected they could be, and if we could help do that, then we've really done our job.
I really do think that is one of the differences that I've noticed here, is how, I don't want to say transparent, that almost seems trite, but you almost feel like you're going on this with them, just from the little details. I mean, every almost thought that they have is being broadcast down to us, which probably for them is a blessing and a curse.
Well, and I think that relationship actually brings itself into the technical as well. What they're doing is hard. I think this is a grueling day, even though they're so happy with this work, and you can tell the ground is thrilled and learning things they never even thought they would with these observations, and it's clear the crew is really well trained. But to the technical tasks, it's hard, and often the ground is saying, hey, we'd like you to do this, and I can hear that little bitty silence like, okay, not what we planned, but if that's what you need, that's what we will do. And it's that relationship that they have together that helps them accomplish the technical part of this mission as well.
See, you have the expertise to sort of read between what's not being said to pick up on that. I have to be quick with you. Do you wish that you were up there?
Absolutely.
Katie Coleman, we will talk to you again. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank
Still
you.
to come, the United States isn't the only nation racing back to the moon. As NASA breaks a record set by Apollo 13, China has its own lunar ambitions. So who will come out on top in the modern-day space race? You're watching The Daily Report. The launch of Artemis II marks a critical step in a new space race with China. Both the U.S. and China are hoping to be the first nation to establish a permanent presence on the moon. Artemis II is essentially a test mission for future launches. NASA hopes to put humans back on the moon by 2028, though the U.S. space program has been prone to delays. China is aiming for a moon landing by 2030. Mary Gunther joins us now. She's head of space policy at the Progressive Policy Institute. Thank you for being here. So people may remember the space race with the Soviet Union in the 50s and 60s. What makes this different?
Absolutely. So this time we're going to stay, and we're bringing our international partners along with us. You see Jeremy Hansen on Artemis II, but we also have contributions and likely potential astronauts from other nations as well. It's going to be really exciting.
What is the strategic benefit of establishing a moon presence first?
Totally. As with many technology areas, it's a tale as old as time. Whoever pioneers the technology gets to control the rules that are made around it, and therefore usually gets to reap the economic, the national security, and the diplomatic benefits that come along with them.
So is this all long-term thinking, or will there be a short-term benefit for humans back on Earth?
There will certainly be a little bit of both. I mean, the moon has some incredibly exciting short-term benefits in terms of the science, the exploration, the discovery, potential resource extraction as well. And in the long term, think about all of the technological innovations that the Apollo program brought to us here on Earth. Many people think of Tang as the classic example, but we also got the kind of attire that firefighters use that's fire resistant, and water filtration procedures that really had not been in use prior to Apollo.
Great examples, Mary Gunther. Thank you. Coming up in our next half hour, the Artemis II crew has now traveled farther from Earth than anyone in human history, but their accomplishments are far from over. Coming up, we break down the key objectives of this expedition. You're watching the Daily Report on CBS News 24/7, the #1 free streaming news service in America. A lunar flyby like the one Artemis II is embarking on is no easy task. CBS News senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleave has an inside look at how the crew prepared from the Orion mission simulator at the Johnson Space Center in Houston.
I'm here with NASA astronaut Randy Bresnik. This is one of those milestone moments people have been waiting for, the lunar flyby. What is the crew doing to get ready for this?
The crew's been waiting for this their whole lives, and humanity's been waiting for 54 years. And so they have got the vehicle in a condition where they've probably dimmed the lights inside. They've got their lunar maps out so they can make sure they're identifying the terrain features that they've been trained to do. They've got their cameras all ready to go. There's going to be video taken, there's going to be still shots taken, but it's the things that they see and choose to shoot with their camera. Those are the things that will be most interesting to us when they come back.
And that's the camera they'll be using.
It's the same, basic Nikon that we have on the International Space Station. It's very well proven in the space environment. We've got a zoom lens on so they can actually, focus on big and small things. When they take pictures, they'll want to stabilize themselves, and a lot of times because you're floating in space, you kind of put your hand on the window, and then use that to stabilize the camera when you're taking pictures. And so the cameras are really good and have fast shutter speeds and really high ISO for the pictures, and so we really don't have a problem with camera jitter or floating around and messing up the pictures and blurring them because of the quality of our cameras.
What's the shot you're hoping for?
The shot that I hope that we all get to see is when they come out of the 45 minutes of blackout and they're able to send down a first shot. It's Earthrise, but it's not Bill Anders' Apollo 8 Earthrise. It's the Artemis generation's Earthrise, taken by one of our crew members.
One of those images that lasts, this becomes timeless.
That I hope inspires this generation of people to great things beyond Earth.
A huge moment. Back to you.
Chris Van Cleave, thanks. As we've heard throughout the day, the Artemis II crew has a jam-packed schedule in order to meet all the mission objectives set by NASA. The primary goal of Artemis II is performing a crewed test flight in lunar space. We've been hearing that all hour, right? But the agency has some other key priorities, too. Those are test the ability of systems and teams to keep the crew in the flight environment and through their return to Earth, test the systems and operations needed for lunar campaigns, retrieve and assess flight hardware and data, test emergency system capabilities, and additional objectives to verify subsystems and validate data. Kristen Fisher joins us now. She's the founder and executive producer at Endless Void Studios, which covers all things space. She's also the daughter of 2 former NASA astronauts, and her mom was the first mother to ever fly in space. So what are your thoughts, feelings, observations of the mission so far?
I mean, what an incredible day it has been. I have just been glued to my laptop the whole day watching this. What a treat to be able to really be taken along on this journey and not just see, but listen to these incredible explorers and astronauts as they're seeing parts of the moon that no human eyes have ever laid eyes on. It's just been an incredible day in particular, I thought. But this whole mission has just been truly groundbreaking.
I mean, really, the access, it does feel like you're sort of a fly on the wall.
Yeah. mean, sometimes you pop into the live stream and you'll see Victor Glover, working out on that flywheel, or they're changing clothes. There have been some moments where I'm like, should I be seeing this right now?
Yeah, you feel a little voyeuristic, but we're also kind of loving it.
But it's the greatest reality television, right?
100%. It's bigger than all of us, too.
Sure.
It's so important. So to make this successful, I mean, is it already a success? Do they have... Yes, they're going to be snapping photos, and we are all going to be glued to them. But has this already been just such an important milestone for NASA?
Oh, I mean, for sure. The fact that Artemis II launched on its very first attempt with such a smooth countdown.
Like 10 minutes after the window opened?
Exactly. I mean, that shows you right there how much NASA has learned from Artemis I. So the launch was an incredible success. I mean, so far the biggest issue has been the toilet, right?
Which is not a small thing.
Not a small thing. And the whole point of this test mission, the first crewed test mission of Orion, has been primarily to test out the human features, right? The things that humans need to survive and live in deep space.
We're messy.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta go to the bathroom, right? So if that's the biggest issue, this is going to be a huge win. But you talk to everybody at NASA. This mission is not over yet. Nothing is over until the parachutes open and those astronauts are safely back on planet Earth, because we've still got that big test of the Orion heat shield, which some people have been quite concerned about.
Really quick, what do your parents think about what's going on?
Oh, they just think it's the coolest thing. They've waited their whole lives, it feels like. I mean, the whole reason my parents got into NASA was watching the Apollo 11 lunar landing, and then to go 50 years without seeing this again, I mean, it's just... it's incredible for them and incredible for me. I've never seen anything like this. This is the greatest human adventure of my lifetime thus far, and it's only the beginning.
And your kids.
My 3-year-old and my 8-year-old got to see their very first rocket launch just a few days ago. And imagine your first launch is Artemis II. I'm so jealous.
Is the SLS, right? Krista Fisher, lovely to have you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
In CBS News senior national correspondent Mark Strassman's conversation with the Artemis II astronauts Saturday, he asked them a bunch of questions, including one we can all relate to when we go on a trip of any kind, let alone in space.
I think we've all been on a trip where we wish we had packed differently. Now that you're pushing deeper into space, is there something you left behind that you wish you had brought with you?
You're hearing a lot of brainstorming in the cabin right now. The resounding answer is we feel very well taken care of. There's not a whole lot we would live without. That typical forgetting your sunscreen or your bug spray on vacation. They thought of everything. My initial response was my family. I would love to have them up here, but then I might actually never come home. And yeah, I really can't think of much. The other joke was we think we had a radiation hit on one of our computers and took it down. So maybe we would have packed a spare computer. Other than that, we're just so well taken care of. In fact, so well taken care of that sometimes we forget. You can easily just get your presence here in the cabin and forget exactly where we are.
I want to ask a question for all the young people watching. Take Kruger Middle School in San Antonio. They are studying the science and the engineering of the moonshot, along with what it takes to be an astronaut. What is your message to all the kids watching and fascinated?
Yeah, I was sharing with some people yesterday, you need to identify your passions in life. We all are attracted to something out there that, just kind of fired up. And then just to recognize that everybody has something of value to offer. I mean, that is just a true statement. And we as humans, even the 4 people up here doing this, we have self-doubt. We've had it in our pathway as well. And so I know all those youth out there too are thinking, no, I can't do that. Every once in a while, you're going to have that. And so share your passions with others. And you're going to be amazed at how they help you. They're on your team, and they're going to help you accomplish the things that you're interested in doing. And the reality is humanity needs those contributions. So just get after it.
Victor, I have one for you. Apollo 8 had a memorable Christmas Eve reading from Genesis. Do you have a message you'd like to share from space about Easter Sunday?
I don't have anything prepared. I'm glad you brought that up, though. I think these observances are important, and as we are so far from Earth and looking back at, the beauty of creation, I think for me, one of the really important personal perspectives that I have up here is I can really see Earth as one thing. And, you know, when I read the Bible and I look at all of the amazing things that were done for us who were created, it's, you have this amazing place, this spaceship. You guys are talking to us because we're in a spaceship really far from Earth, but you're on a spaceship called Earth that was created to give us a place to live in the universe, in the cosmos. I think maybe the distance we are from you makes you think what we're doing is special, but we're the same distance from you. And I'm trying to tell you, just trust me, you are special. In all of this emptiness, this is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together. I think as we go into Easter Sunday, thinking about, you know, all the cultures all around the world, whether you celebrate it or not, whether you believe in God or not, this is an opportunity for us to remember where we are, who we are, and that we are the same thing and that we got to get through this together.
Well, for someone who didn't have anything prepared, that was really quite extraordinary. Another question. During the lunar flyby, you're going to have radio silence for about 40 minutes. You'll be on one side of the moon. Everyone else on Earth will be on the other. You'll be focused on the mission. What do you hope the rest of us are thinking about?
I also haven't had anything prepared for that question, but I think things that come to mind for me are thinking about togetherness. When people talk about that Apollo 11 first moon landing, there's the two that landed on the moon, and then there's the one Michael Collins stayed in orbit, and he did orbits around the far side of the moon alone with those losses of signal. And people asked him the rest of his life what that was like. And in the end, for me, it leads back to gratitude. Gratitude that out of this huge universe, we get to live together on Earth, planet Earth, and what an anomaly that is. When I saw Earth for the first time on its own out the window, I was struck by the blackness around it. If you can just think about what it means to be together and what it means to be apart from your loved ones during that time and reflect on that, maybe we'll all come to a realization.
We wanted to take a deeper dive into the nearly 16-year journey to send another crewed mission to the moon. This chapter for NASA began in 2010 with the agency's budget for the year requiring the creation of a heavy lift rocket and crew capsule that could help, quote, expand permanent human presence beyond low Earth orbit. Those two pieces of equipment eventually became the Orion capsule and the Space Launch System rocket, the SLS, which the Artemis II astronauts are using on their current mission. The Trump administration followed in 2017 with Space Policy Directive 1, which officially authorized a lunar-focused campaign developing into the current Artemis missions. NASA originally had a goal of accomplishing a lunar landing by 2028, but then Vice President Mike Pence announced the Trump administration was pushing the target date up to 2024. The Artemis project, though, faced massive delays as NASA and its partners like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Boeing, Lockheed Martin struggled to develop the necessary technology and flesh out logistics essential for the mission. For example, the original 2010 budget plan stated the new Space Launch System needed to be ready by the end of 2016, but it wouldn't actually be ready to fly until November 2022 because of technical delays. The 73-day 2022 uncrewed Artemis I flight gave NASA valuable information about communications and deep space navigation, along with serving as the first major test of the Orion capsule and SLS. That information helped NASA recalibrate certain technologies and prepare to add astronauts to the mission. We heard Kristen talking about the heat shield, for example. Now Artemis II has broken records and reignited hope in NASA pushing the Artemis missions forward to their next goal, landing on the moon. Still to come, the crew is about to lose contact with mission control, and it's not the first time NASA has gone silent with astronauts in space. Why the blackout is a normal part of the flyby. After the break, you're watching The Daily Report. .42 Eastern, and the Artemis crew is seconds away from being plunged into silence as the members round the far side of the moon. And my screen is going to blue, but it's back now. Very interesting to see the crescent Earth there behind the moon. So the moon blocks all radio and laser signals to Earth, which means the 4 astronauts are not going to hear mission control in Houston. Houston's not going to hear them for 40 minutes or so. But this isn't the first time NASA has been unable to communicate with astronauts in space. During Apollo 11 in 1969, Michael Collins lost signal
of the Orion spacecraft as it flies behind the moon. We expect to regain communications with them in another approximately 40 minutes. This was expected as their spacecraft is now out of direct line of sight with Earth and behind the moon. And this is a poignant moment as it's the first time in over 50 years that we have humans completely unreachable by anyone else on Earth. No matter how distant or secluded, we could reach anyone living on Earth, but while the crew flies behind the moon, it's simply impossible to make contact with them. This is a live view inside the science evaluation room here at Johnson Space Center.
So she was talking about it. That last time was for about 48 minutes while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked the surface of the moon. So for more on this, let's bring in former NASA astronaut Ron Garan. Ron, your thoughts as we no longer have comms with Artemis II.
Yeah, this is a very exciting moment. I'm sure that the crew is still really, really busy. They're not going to miss a beat, just because they lost contact. But as you just reported, we have blackouts all the time. We call them LOSs, loss of signal. But in an emergency, we can open up those channels and talk. So when we like on the International Space Station, when we hand off from satellite to satellite, or on a Soyuz spacecraft, there were times, probably in excess of 40 minutes, where we've lost comm with the ground because of ground stations. However, like you said, if we needed to, we could get that, or at least the ground could get that communication back. Right now, there's no way to contact the crew for another 38 more minutes.
Do you think that's different psychologically for them?
Maybe things got a lot quieter, and so maybe they can focus.
Maybe they're like,
more.
phew.
No, the crew on Orion and the crew on the ground are doing a really good job. They're collaborating really well. And so one of the things, if something does go wrong, if there's a malfunction on the spacecraft, an emergency on the spacecraft, the crew for the next, for all the time they're behind the moon, are going to be on their own with that. So it is nice to know that you have a whole bunch of people looking over your shoulder, looking at the spacecraft systems, making sure everything is functioning as it should be. But it's, 40 minutes is not too much of time to be able to be on your own.
And this is the sweet spot, right? Because these next 40 minutes when they're on the far side, is this when they're going to be taking like the lion's share of the pictures and doing the observations, you think? Because by the time they peek back out, they're now on an earthbound trajectory. They're the closest to the moon they're going to be on this mission.
Yes, this is a very busy 40 minutes. It's been a very busy few hours. They're trying to get all the science they possibly can out of this pass, since they're not entering into orbit around the moon. They're just doing a flyby of the moon. And we haven't done it in a long time. And they're seeing parts of the moon that have never been seen before by human eyes. And so, I sat in on the science conference they had a few hours before going behind the moon, and everything is choreographed down to the second. What window they're going to be in, who's going to be taking pictures, what cameras, what lenses, what camera settings, and so they went over all of that. And so it is a very busy time.
Well, Ron Garan, we have really enjoyed having you each and every day of this mission. Come back many times as you can. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Have you heard about the dining on Artemis II? The food's good, but there's absolutely no atmosphere. Coming up, our Chris Van Cleve will break down when, what, and how the crew is eating on their journey. You're watching The Daily Report. There are 189 unique menu items the Artemis II crew can choose to fuel their lunar journey. Our Chris Van Cleve takes a look at how NASA developed the menu.
I'm here with Susan Baggerman. She's the Chief Health and Performance Officer for the Orion program. And let's talk about the food. Is this like any other road trip where you're just packing some snacks?
No, we do provide full nutrition for all 4 crew members for the entire 10-day mission. We actually plan a specific menu for each crew member, so they're able to work with our food scientist, come up with items that they would really like to eat, but also meet their nutritional needs. And each crew member has a set menu that will be flying for this flight. So it all has to be kind of shelf stable. We don't have any refrigerator or anything like that. So it all has to be food that we can pack in the vehicle and that the crew then can prepare themselves once they're in flight.
I'm thinking of that dehydrated ice cream that you used to get at like a science museum.
So you're thinking along the right way. We don't actually fly that exact ice cream on this flight, but food that's very similar to that. So it's packaged. Some of the food the crew will actually put water into. So it's dehydrated food that they'll rehydrate. Then they put it in the food warmer. And they'll heat it back up.
And is that basically just this is the food warmer over here. Is that basically just a hot pan?
It's basically a hot plate. So we have food packages that are similar to this. This is actually a beverage pouch, but we have food pouches and beverage pouches. The crew can rehydrate them here with this water dispenser. It'll have a hose that comes off of it during the mission. And then if it is an item that they need to heat, so like for example, if this was coffee, they could rehydrate it with the water dispenser and then just slide it right in here in the food warmer and be able to heat it up. And a lot of our food items are the exact same way. We also have some food items that don't have to be rehydrated. So think more like a military MRE, like a meal's ready to eat, where it's packaged and ready to go, what we call thermostabilized food, that they would just take directly out of the stowage system, slide it here in the food warmer and heat it up.
And is the food basically, does it need to be sort of a solid mass so it doesn't float everywhere?
So we do worry a lot about being sure that we're not creating too many crumbs. So for example, we really don't fly a lot of bread or crackers. We tend to fly a lot of tortillas because tortillas don't crumb as much as some of those other items. Any crumbs that would be floating around in here could get into the crew members' eyes, that they could breathe them in. So we really try to, minimize anything that could be floating in the cabin.
How many days of food do you have on board?
We have the 10 days that they'll use for a normal mission. We also have a special food system that we're flying on this flight. If we were to have a situation where the cabin would lose pressure, we would have to put the crew in suits and bring them home in suits. So we have a special food system by which they could put food directly into their spacesuits. It's basically, kind of in the simplest term, like protein shakes. But we do fly that in addition to the 10 days of food.
Great. Susan, thank you. From the Flying Kitchen, back to you.
Chris, thank you so much. It has been 10 minutes since Mission Control lost communication with Artemis II as it loops around the moon. This was expected. All right, let's show you video of the moment before we lost contact. So you can see the Earth about to set behind the moon. These were the last images from the Orion spacecraft before it crossed into the far side. CBS News space consultant Bill Harwood joins me now. So loss of comms, it sounds scary. They have planned for this. What are your thoughts?
Well, of course they have. They knew this was going to happen. This is just physics at work. And no one on the crew is worried about this at all. It's just an interesting situation. They're, as I've said before, they're the most alone they can be in the solar system right now. No chatter from Mission Control coming in over the radio. There's no data going back and forth. It's just the astronauts, their cameras in their eyes, looking down on the unseen portions of the far side of the moon that we don't get to see from Earth. So I think it's quite a moment for them. It's one they can share among themselves. And Victor Glover, the pilot, gave us some moving words right before they lost contact. And said, he's a very religious man, and he spoke about how, people should love each other on Earth, and he closed by saying, see you on the other side. So we will see him on the other side.
When do you think we're going to start getting some of the pictures and images that they've been taking?
One of the problems with being all the way out at the moon is you think about bandwidth. I mean, the data stream back to Earth, they can't send a lot of high-resolution videos and movies, pictures at the same time. So they queue them up in a computer and they get sent back on a time available basis. So I think it's going to be a while before we see some of the most spectacular imagery. We've only seen rough images so far, and that's normal for something like this. It's not like high-speed internet out at the moon where you can just upload a picture. But we will see them. I mean, it'll all be in the public domain. In the end, we're just going to have to be patient.
It's still incredible what we have been able to hear and experience along with them. Bill Harwood, thank you. We'll see you again next hour because our special Artemis II coverage continues after a short break. I'm Lindsey Reiser. This is a special edition of the Daily Report on CBS News 24/7, the #1 free streaming news service in America.
We're just on the fringes of going into space, and we have literally the whole universe ahead of us.
The United States is ready to try and place its first Earth satellite into orbit. And there is a sudden, tremendous burst of flame.
Together, let us explore the stars.
Astronaut Alan B. Shepard, the hopes of America riding with him.
3, 2, 1, ignition.
Oh, that view is tremendous.
Man is but on the threshold of this great new adventure.
Apollo 8, this is Houston, reading you loud and clear.
It makes you realize just what you have back there on Earth.
What a moment. Man on the way to the moon.
Contact light. Okay, engine stop. The Eagle has landed.
What?
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
There it is, a U.S. flag on the surface of the moon.
We leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return with peace and in hope for all mankind.
And liftoff. The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
There's nothing that prepares you for the breathtaking aspect of seeing your home planet.
Hello, Artemis II. This is Apollo astronaut Jim Lovell. Welcome to my old neighborhood.
Thank you for joining us. NASA's Artemis II mission is currently without communications back to Earth as it makes its way around the far side of the moon. We lost contact with them at 6:43 p.m. Eastern. The crew made history this afternoon, going farther than any other human before them in space. All afternoon, the astronauts have been photographing, recording, and making observations of the moon as they approached. The Artemis crew is again making history with 4 members on board, becoming the first humans to lay eyes on some parts of the far side of the moon. The capsule has just achieved its closest proximity to the moon at around 4,000 miles from the lunar surface. So for perspective, that means the moon will appear to be roughly the size of a basketball when it is held out to arm's length. Now, because the far side of the moon has been too dark to see in the previous missions, the Artemis II crew is tasked with taking upwards of 10,000 pictures as they make their way around it. So in a moment, the capsule will reach its farthest point on its roughly 10-day journey when it reaches 252,756 miles from Earth. And finally, they will witness a solar eclipse as the moon passes in front of the sun as they continue on the trajectory to return home. Let's bring in CBS News space contributor Bill Harwood from the Johnson Space Center in Houston. So I want to bring back my basketball friend and ask you how much detail the astronauts will be able to glean from this distance.
Well, quite a bit. You know, they've got cameras with really big lenses that they can use. But, you know, one of the things, Lindsay, I think that's really interesting about this is the scientists have stressed all along that one of the things the astronauts bring to this is their eyes. You know, it turns out that the human eye is more sensitive to very slight differences in hue and in color, and that tells the scientists something about the composition of the surface and its history. And of course, that's the whole point of all of this, is to learn more about the moon's origins, because it's clearly related to Earth. It's made of the same stuff. You know, it came from the same material that formed the Earth, and so, but it's in a pristine state. You know, there's no weathering on the moon, so they're hoping that the astronauts, between the photographs, the imagery, and their eyeballs, their oral descriptions of what they've been able to see, will really help scientists get a slightly better grip on the history of the moon and how it came to be the way it is.
I found it interesting, particularly in the communication between Victor Glover and Mission Control, that he was essentially saying he was having a hard time with his eyes adjusting if he was looking at some kind of reading inside Orion and then looking back out the window at the brightness of the moon. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, and I think this was something they probably expected. It just was a little more severe than they thought. You know, they turned the cabin lights down very, very low So their eyes are fully adjusted to dark when they're looking out the window and taking these pictures. And when you come back, when you bring your head back inside, away from the window, and you're looking at like an iPad or a computer screen, it just appears really bright, and that kind of shocks the eyes a little bit. Like when you get out of a dark room and walk into bright light, it takes you a few minutes to adjust to it. So it was just that. I think it was routine. They expected it, but maybe it was a little bit more extreme than they thought it would be.
Yeah, when my little girls wake up, I turn off the kitchen light for them because they're always like, oh, it's too bright. Well, not the baby. She can't talk. But tell me a little bit more about
it's the same thing.
The next few minutes here that we're still going to be without these comms. And just a reminder, this was expected. What are you thinking once we hear again from the Orion crew that we can expect?
It's interesting. Astronauts will always tell you that their one goal is to get the job done and not to screw it up, right? I mean, they're going to be working through their timeline very diligently, but you've got to think, when they're out of contact with Earth and those communications lines go dead and you don't hear anything, nobody's interrupting you, no distractions. I mean, even though they're working, they have to, I would imagine anybody would take a moment just to think about where they are, on the other side of the moon, the most alone people in the solar system right now, and just think about that for a minute. I can't understand how anybody could be in that situation and not have a moment's reflection, even though I know they're working. I don't have any doubt about that, but what a moment it must be for them.
Yeah, just to soak in the awe of the moment. Well said, Bill Harwood. Thank you. We will talk to you again later this hour. CBS News senior national correspondent Mark Strassman spoke Saturday with the astronauts, and they told him about the shock and awe of seeing both the moon and Earth from space.
We've all watched a waxing moon from Earth. What's it like to watch the moon grow from space?
Well, before I get to the moon, something that I've just been really taken by is the waxing and waning Earth from our different perspectives. It's just been a little surprising to me. I just assumed it's sort of like the moon is consistent, almost from day to day. You don't notice a huge change from one day to the next in how much of it is lit. But from 1 hour to a few hours later up here, we can see a completely different Earth as this orbit changes, especially when we are close to Earth. That was really surprising to me, like crescent to full Earth. We woke up that first morning on TLI morning, it was a half Earth, then it was a full Earth, and then it was a no Earth. Yeah. This is really amazing. To watch the moon grow is exciting. That's our destination. That's where we're locked onto. When we're done with you today, we're going to get into some review of some of the science we're going to be doing and shifting our mindset to the Earth or to the moon. And I'm pumped to do some of those observations, some time up close and personal with the moon before we set our sights back at home.
And I'll just add, yesterday we were looking out the docking hatch, which is off the camera to the top side, and we were just starting to see the moon, and it just looked different. And we were catching glimpses of the far side, the side that you can never see from Earth, of Grimaldi, of Oriental. We were just starting to see around Grimaldi into that far. And as for humans who have looked at the moon our entire lives, it just looked different out the window, and that is wild. It just really put our place in the universe in perspective.
For more, let's bring in Derek Pitts. He's the chief astronomer at the Franklin Institute. Derek, we have about 18 minutes until we hear from the Artemis II crew again. What's going through your mind?
What's going through my mind is what a great time the astronauts must be having, enjoying the view of the far side of the moon, doing all the great science work that they're doing, taking in this view, and really the chatter that must be going on among them about the details that they're seeing on the surface of the moon. And also, I can't help but imagine that they must be sharing among them their feelings about being so far away from planet Earth at this point. It's just a couple of minutes past their greatest distance from Earth, and they're way over on the far side of the moon, out of communication with the Earth, as Bill said, probably feeling like some of the loneliest people in the solar system right now, but having a great time.
Call me nostalgic, but I know that every astronaut wants to be in their shoes. Do you think that any part of this is bittersweet for them because they should have made their closest touch point for lack of a better word. They're not actually touching down. Their closest orbit to the moon, their closest approach. And so from here on out, they're only going to be now moving away. Do you think that there is anything psychologically bittersweet about that?
Oh, I definitely think so. Sure. It's been a fantastic ride for them. And they've had this singular human experience of orbiting around the moon, the four of them together, this singular human experience that they have been able to share with the world and bring all the science back. And I'm certain they've loved every second of it. So now that they're coming back, they're returning from this. And you know, it's a really great question as to whether they will ever have this opportunity again. Now, you know, of course, they should spread the experience among all the astronauts, but I'm sure that in the back of their minds, they're thinking, you know, I'd love to come back again, maybe even step out on the surface at some point in my life.
Wow. Derek Pitts, thank you so much for helping us understand a little bit of what might be going on in their heads. Let's now head to Joel Kearns. He's the Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration at NASA. Joel, how are you feeling?
Incredible day for science from space, Lindsay. And not only that, it's science coming from people out at the moon.
What's been the most surprising or exciting part that you've heard today in the communications between the Orion crew and Mission Control?
Well, you know, for the past few hours, the crew has been doing observations of the sunlit areas of the moon as they go out to the moon and they get ready to swing around and come back to Earth. And they have said a couple of things that they just called down to the ground to get our comments or just let us know what it is they're seeing. One aspect is that they are seeing a lot of color on the moon. This is something we hoped they would see with the discerning capability of the human eye, because that could be an indication of chemicals or minerals or changes in the surface structure at the moon. Another thing we've noticed is that, in particular, our pilot, Victor Glover, has commented on the almost stark beauty of the Terminator, that is the place on the moon where sunlight fades into darkness, right? And what he's noticed, since we're seeing the Terminator on the far side of the moon, which we never see the far side of the moon from Earth, he's almost noticed how it looks like islands of light or mountains of light in a sea of darkness, you know, the tall areas in the light still and the darker areas, lower areas in the shadow. And in addition to that, you know, a non-scientific thing I'll bring up is that the crew, from the start of this today, as they've gotten closer to the moon, have really started to make the moon part of their own. For example, in the beginning, when they first started observing the moon today, they have proposed some names for some craters. They've named one crater at the eastern edge, I believe the eastern area of the near side, or pardon me, the western area of the near side, after their spacecraft called Integrity, and they named another Carol in honor of Commander Weissman's late wife.
Yeah, we played that moment, and what a poignant moment that was, and to be able to witness that, it was really a privilege for us here on the ground to see that moment. You know, you mentioned the browns and the greens that Victor had mentioned, and sort of it seemed like the rugged terrain along that Terminator and the far side. How many years do you think scientists will be kept busy from the observations on this mission?
Well, I think it's going to take a lot of analysis of the detailed observations the crew is going to send back to the ground, as well as the photographs they took. It's not only going to inform scientific work done today, but it'll probably be used to generate generations of students in the future, in addition to how we're going to use it at NASA to prepare for the trips that will land on the surface of the moon and build a base at the south pole of the moon.
Really quick, are you counting down the next 10 minutes until we hear from them again?
Well, we're looking forward to hear from them. They're going to continue their observations. We're expecting that later, as they go through an eclipse, they're going to have some really interesting observations of when the sun, you know, when the moon is shielding them from the sun. What does that look like from where they are in space as opposed to what we see when we're on the ground? So there's a lot of science to come when they come back into radio contact with us.
I can't wait. Joel Kearns, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up, how do you work out in space when weights don't weigh anything? CBS's Chris Van Cleve has an inside look at how the astronauts are exercising in zero gravity. You're watching The Daily Report. Even though the Artemis II mission is much shorter than a typical trip to the International Space Station, the crew still needs to stay in shape. CBS News senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve shows us the crew's onboard exercise equipment.
I'm with Susan Baggerman. She's the Chief Health and Performance Officer on the Orion program. How do you exercise in space?
It's a great question. So in this vehicle, you can see it's relatively small, which means exercising, especially when you have 4 crew members in here, is going to be a challenge. Our engineers came up with a very novel device. It's a flywheel device, so not incredibly different from something you could use in the gym. But this single device allows the crew member to do resistive exercise, so basically like lifting weights, as well as aerobic exercise like rowing. We put it here on just below the hatch. It gives the crew members space, like within the entire volume of the vehicle, as well as up into the docking hatch. And then it's also able to serve as a step for the crew to get in and out of the vehicle.
How much exercise time a day is important in space?
It depends on the duration of the mission. For this flight, for Artemis II, we're asking the crew members to exercise 30 minutes per day for each crew member. For this mission, because it's a 10-day mission, 30 minutes of exercise a day is really sufficient for them to be able to maintain their muscles, maintain their bones, and of course for the mental health aspect too.
And I was just thinking, 2 hours of exercise a day, there's not a lot of room in here. How does that impact the ability to do everything else?
Well, the crew members know it's going to be tight. So the other crew members definitely know they're going to need to find activities to do that are maybe not so central to the module while crew members are exercising. You know, the reality is Artemis II is a test flight. So we're going to learn a lot about how this works to have crew members living and working in this tight a space while a crew member is exercising. You know, we certainly worry not only about the volume that they take up, but they're going to be sweating. Their exercise is going to drive the heat up some in the vehicle. Our systems have been designed around that. So our life support systems that control the air in the vehicle, exercise was really what they were designed to accommodate. But we'll learn a lot about how possible it is to have 4 crew members working and living in this space while one of them exercises.
A lot to learn on this mission, Susan. Thank you. Back to you.
Chris Van Cleve, thanks. For more, let's bring in retired NASA astronaut Bonnie Dunbar. She took part in 5 space flights and spent more than 50 days in space. Bonnie, thank you so much for being here. How do you think this is going so far?
Well, thank you for having me. I think it's going extremely well. You know, I was down there for the launch. It was an incredible launch to watch. It went by quite fast compared to the shuttle launches, which seemed to go a little slower. So it was up and away, and everything seems to be going quite well. So I'm personally very pleased. It brings back memories of when I was a sophomore studying engineering at the University of Washington, and Apollo 8 went up, and so we're in a much more sophisticated program now, planning to stay on the moon, and it's kind of exciting.
Have you learned anything from what you've been hearing from the crew communicating with NASA down here on Earth?
Yes, as you might recall, we landed 6 times on the surface of the moon, 12 men walked on the moon, but it was all in the mid-latitude areas, all facing Earth, because one side of the moon is always facing us. Now, as we plan to actually put that base on the South Pole, we're mapping out more on the far side and around the poles. This is all going to be very important. So I've been listening to the verbal descriptions. All astronauts still take some geological training because we do some of that from Earth orbit. But that's been very interesting to hear their descriptions of what they're seeing.
What has been the most interesting part for you so far?
Oh, that's hard to say. You know, I personally didn't know about some of the craters. One that they refer to as kind of the Grand Canyon of the moon. There's one like that on Mars, by the way, as well. And the colors, specifically the colors. As a materials engineer, you know, I'm used to the geology of materials, and knowing that they're seeing some of that, and that the moon was has the same composition roughly as the Earth, because it was part of the Earth, means that our ability to prospect and to extract minerals for a settlement there is just much more real.
How pleased are you that the investment has been made and now it has come to fruition?
Well, absolutely. I think American people have kind of overestimated investment.
I'm so sorry, Bonnie. I got to hold on. We got a CBS News special report.
new era of exploration, the first human moon mission in 53 years.
Artemis II crew is go for launch.
3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Oh, my God.
Core stage separated.
With this burn to the moon, we do not leave Earth. We choose it.
Looks like a good burn.
We surpassed the furthest distance humans have ever traveled from planet Earth.
To watch the moon grow is exciting. That's our destination. That's where we're locked on to.
This is the CBS News Special Report. I'm Tony DeCopel. We are coming on the air because we are just moments away now from regaining signal, regaining contact with the 4 astronauts who have been out of communication range from Mission Control and from all of us for nearly 40 minutes now as they conduct their historic flyby of the moon. The astronauts just made their closest approach to the lunar surface and reached their furthest point from Earth, setting a new record in the process. The Artemis II crew is currently taking part in an approximately 7-hour lunar observation period, getting some of the best views humanity has ever had of the far side of the moon. Let's go to senior national correspondent Mark Strassman, who is at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Mission Control for Artemis II has been following every step of this. Mark, what are you thinking about now?
Well, I'm thinking that the crew, the only people they can talk to at this point are the 4 people in the cabin. They can't talk to anybody else. They have 40 minutes of radio silence that essentially began with Earth set, which is when the Earth disappears below the lunar horizon. The signal drops. There's no more line of sight with Earth, and so you can't communicate. Right before that happened, Mission Control wished them Godspeed, and astronaut Victor Glover said, we love you from the moon, and to all of you down there on Earth and around Earth. So, and the crew and Houston responded, we'll see you on the other side. So that's what we're waiting for now, Tony, is we're waiting to see them on the other side. It lasts for about 40 minutes, and then we'll have Earthrise when the Earth will reappear above the lunar horizon. Then the line of sight will reestablish, the communication will reestablish, and we can't wait to hear what the crew has to say and what Houston has to say in response. All of this is predictable. All of this is expected. No one is worried about it, but it's still, for the rest of us, I think, a moment of suspense.
It's pretty cool. Joining me now to understand it a little bit more deeply are former NASA astronaut Katie Coleman. Katie has been to space 3 times, twice on the space shuttle, once on the Russian Soyuz capsule, along with Kristen Fisher, who is a space journalist and founder of Endless Void Studios. Katie and Kristen, thank you very much for joining us. Michael Collins, astronaut on the mission in '69, he talked in a memoir about what it's like to be in this situation where you can't contact Earth. And he said it's not scary. He didn't feel fear, but he did feel a profound sense of aloneness. Does that make sense to you?
Well, yes and no, in that I orbited the Earth. And I felt what the realization for me was that home was just bigger than we thought. I always thought I'd go to space, I'd be far away, but I felt really just like everybody was right there, just below.
I also talked to an astronaut like yourself who said when you're up there, NASA's got you on a schedule and you're chasing the red line. The red line tells you whether you're on track or you're off track. You're Absolutely. On schedule or you're off. And there is a little bit of relief in being out of communication contact because it's like mom and dad can't bother you.
True statement.
Krista, what are you thinking about right now?
I'm thinking about these astronauts. I'm thinking about their families that they left behind on Earth. But I'm also thinking about these images that we should be getting back very soon. I mean, what these astronauts are about to try to do is recreate one of the most famous images that humankind has ever seen, Earthrise from Apollo 11. I mean, can you imagine that pressure? Forget about launching into space and going to the moon and going farther than any humans have ever gone. You have to try to recreate Earthrise. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. There's also a lot of scientific value in what they're seeing, right? I mean, one of you take this one because I'm not sure where to go with it. The question of the imagery who's waiting to look at it, what we might discover, Katie?
Well, and they're watching it in real time. The science team is right there in mission control, and I can tell with the conversations going back and forth, these people have worked together, eaten dinner together, had beers together, you know, where the astronauts understand what the scientists really wish to understand, and they are giving it to them.
Come back around the other side of the moon. And that little crescent that you see
Picking
is
up something here. We're getting a bit of a grainy picture here, and I think I'm hearing mission control. Is it? Yeah. The capsule is. What are we looking at here? Can I ask control?
The lunar flyby continues, but Orion has also technically begun its journey home.
So that's the live picture from the spaceship. So they are now back in contact? Visual contact, no audio yet. Oh my gosh, it's so interesting.
In the Earth.
Why would that be?
The crew are getting a few moments to enjoy and take photos of Earthrise for themselves.
Let's
and we
listen for a
expect to
second.
contact them shortly. But we do have good signal coming from Orion.
It really is.
I think they're going to be wistful on the way home. I mean, they've been with the moon all day today, and they've been on their way to the moon for days and days.
Yeah.
And now they're going to start going further away from it.
Yeah. Oh, that is an amazing turning
It
point.
still takes days to get home.
They're in the control of the moon at the moment, right? They're in the gravitational the sphere of influence of the moon. They've reached that furthest point. We're getting an image of them. They're going to come around the moon, and Katie, as you point out, they'll reach that magical point where they start exiting
This view from
the view
inside
of the
the
moon
Orion spacecraft,
and start heading toward
all
Earth
4
again.
astronauts
Instead of being
go
further
back
away,
to the other
they're
side of the moon and
just going the other direction.
Yeah, and look, we've got images of the astronauts inside the spacecraft now. It's dark because they've been taking photos, so they didn't want to get any glare on the windows. But I think we've got, that's a pretty good sign that the crew is alive and well after venturing around the far side of the moon.
They do not look like they have missed us.
No, they don't. No.
Not even for a minute.
No, they're not. They're not reaching for their iPhones like they just landed on a flight to look up. Who texted me?
I mean, it's a really hard day, actually. They're focused. There's a set of targets, and they really know the people that are waiting for that data.
Hold on, comm check. Let's listen in.
Integrity, we have you loud and clear. Tell me.
Houston, we have you the same, and it is so great to hear from Earth again. To Asia, Africa, and Oceania, we are looking back at you. We hear you can look up and see the moon right now. We see you too. When we burned this burn towards the moon, I said that we do not leave Earth, but we choose it. And that is true. We will explore, we will build ships, we will visit again. We will construct science outposts. We will drive rovers. We will do radio astronomy. We will found companies. We will bolster industry. We will inspire. But ultimately, we will always choose Earth. We will always choose each other.
Integrity from Earth, our single system, fragile and interconnected. We copy. Those of us that can are looking back.
Do we have it? 40 minutes or so
We are happy to say we
cut
copy.
off from all of humanity, and they're happy to say they now copy. Those were beautiful words, those first words back. Both of you, big smiles, Katie, Kristen. I mean, like, the reaction.
Exactly.
Well, Kristen, you had the biggest reaction, I think. What were you thinking?
I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. I've heard about the Apollo mission since I was a little girl, and I guess there was a part of me that was worried I was never going to see this, you know? And I've got goosebumps. I can't believe the United States has finally done this. And to hear Christina's words there, this is not just a flyby around the moon. This is only the beginning. This is the beginning of building a base on the moon that humans are going to live on permanently. I mean, what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
It's like a relay race where we're all focusing on this mission, and of course we're going to continue to focus until they're safely home. But I mean, they are relay person number one, and there is a person waiting at the start line for them to pass the baton. And you know, spacecraft are being built. The plans are being made to pick up the pace and do more of the tests that you could do, like rendezvous, how to bring the spacecrafts together. They did a lot of testing of Orion on this mission to understand how to then dock on the next missions, in around the Earth. So, I mean, people are ready to go. And it's always been a privilege to be part of, I'm retired from NASA, but to be part of that family where exploration is just like breathing to them.
I mean, the many thousands of minds that have contributed in big ways and small to what we just witnessed and will continue to the next chapter. It's amazing. They set a record, right? Furthest point that humans have ever traveled. And in that very moment, what did they say? We hope it's a short-lived record. That's a unique kind of goal, unique kind of people.
Reid had a really interesting way of saying that, where he said, if our mission ends up being, on the road of exploration to settling on the moon, if our mission ends up being sort of just like a little step up on the curb to everything else that follows, then we'll have done our job.
Yeah, well, I think they've done their job. Someone who's been doing this job of thinking about and writing about and analyzing space and our mission there is Bill Harwood, and he joins us now. Bill, what are your thoughts this evening?
Because of that eclipse,
it kind of reflects what our guest thought. I was really struck by what a moment this must have been for this crew. I totally agree with Kristen, and the astronauts will always tell you they're focused on the job, and I have no doubt. While they were sailing behind the moon, they were busy with their scientific checklist, their photography, their audio communications, or recordings, I should say. But they had to take a minute just to reflect on where they were. I said before launch that I've never looked at the moon before and thought of it as a destination. And that's what it is. It's a destination. It's not just something familiar in the sky to those of us down here on Earth. And this crew really showed that. And, of course, I'm also on the edge of my seat waiting to see what their imagery shows and what sort of pictures and science they might have gathered on this flight. But to me, it's a human story. It's people who have devoted their lives to this and achieving a goal that, if you think about it, it's incredible, really, to think about doing this and flying out to the moon. Yeah, it's really something.
It really is truly something. Katie, he mentions they've got to pause, those 4 astronauts up there, and think about the accomplishment, the moment. How do you come back to anything like normal life? How do you push a cart down the aisle of the grocery store looking for the cereal you like after that?
It happens, I mean, even up on orbit, you get calls about, where is this, in the house. For them, I mean, they represent so many of us, and I think for them and their families, it's been a long but wonderful journey. Mm-hmm. I think we should remember that they need to belong to their families a bit, just because that's really part of coming home and really being there for them. Yeah. When we talk about how hard this has been and how many things have to go right and how many people designed it and built it and are monitoring, for every seat in mission control in Houston or launch control or your control room, there's a family back home that is making things work so that the mission can be accomplished.
Kristen, we talk about military families. I suppose it's also true, based on what Katie just said, that there's basically astronaut families as well, and you were in one. You were the daughter of 2 astronauts.
Yes.
What's it like knowing that there are other kids like yourself waiting for mom and dad who are right now in space?
I was only 15 months old when my mom flew into space, 2 years old when my dad flew, so I don't remember that. I was so nervous for Reed Weissman's children, Victor Glover's children, Jeremy Hansen's family, to watch your parent not just go on a trip, but leave Earth. I mean, how many other professions are there out there where you're literally counting down to the moment of a very dangerous thing, right? It's a very unusual thing to watch as a family member, watching your loved one go up and do that. And so I'm just glad I wasn't old enough to have to watch my parents go to space when I was old enough, like your son, Katie.
Right. One of our sons was at the launch as well, and he was remarking that it was an emotional moment for him, just because he empathizes with the other families. And
it is really emotional. It's emotional whether you're deeply connected to it or just another human being on the planet. You see it, and I think people are overwhelmed when they witness it live, even when they just watch at home. And I was there down in Florida with Mark Strassman, who I want to go back to now. Mark, closing thoughts here as you watch the beginning of loss of contact and then its return?
Well, I think this crew has earned some downtime, which they're going to get tomorrow. They're going to do some manual flying. They're going to do some more testing, and then basically they're heading home for a splashdown off the coast of San Diego. I think they're probably looking forward to putting down the camera. I mean, most of this lunar flyby has been taking pictures, 10,000 pictures. They've been using flashcards like this one. This is actually what they've been using to identify different areas of the moon that they want to take pictures of. It's a highly choreographed lunar landscape session, and this crew has just done remarkably well every step of the way so far, and the downtime tomorrow they've earned.
Yeah, there's still work to do. What do you hope Americans, Katie and Kristen, take away from this? I think, honestly, this snuck up on people. When people asked me last week, what are you doing on the show this week? And I said, oh, the moon mission. Don't you know about it? People didn't. And now I feel hundreds of millions of people around the world have become aware of it, and they're going to take something away from it. What do you hope that is, Kristen?
I just want people to care about space exploration again. For so long, it has been kind of on the back burner, and I firmly believe that space needs to be experienced. Whether you're watching a rocket launch in person or viewing a total solar eclipse, people are so disconnected from the night sky because of light pollution and whatnot. I just hope that this has reinvigorated the public's interest in space. Mine didn't need to be reinvigorated, but I'm pumped.
But as a journalist, you do a good job of helping people stay interested. And what do you hope people take away, Katie?
We have a lot of challenges down here on the Earth to solve. And I think that when people see a demonstration of the impossible being shown to be possible by people who are real people, who are candid, who are sharing when they're sad, when they're challenged, when they're happy. I mean, this crew, every one of them is very much very real. And I think that speaks to people back on Earth and inspires them to take up the challenges that they each can take up.
Yeah, to be an astronaut in your own life. I really appreciate it. Thank you for guiding us through this. What a night, what a day, what a mission so far. And we hope them the best on their return flight home. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, on your local news, and for some of you on the CBS Evening News with yours truly. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Tony DeCopel.
Welcome back. I'm Lindsey Reiser. We have been watching a CBS News special report because we just watched a historic moment in the history of space exploration. The crew of NASA's Artemis II mission have made their way around the far side of the moon, seeing parts of the far side never before seen with the naked eye. We know that NASA just regained communication with the crew, and Christina Cook said that we are going to found businesses and build landers and outposts, but she said we will always choose Earth. We will always choose each other. The crew also made history by traveling 252,000 miles from Earth, the farthest any humans have traveled before. This is NASA's first crewed lunar mission in half a century. That comms blackout lasted about 40 minutes. It was expected while the Orion capsule was behind the moon. And here's what we heard as they begin their journey back.
Houston, we have you the same, and it is so great to hear from Earth again. To Asia, Africa, and Oceania, we are looking back at you. We hear you can look up and see the moon right now. We see you too. When we burned this burn towards the moon, I said that we do not leave Earth, but we choose it. And that is true. We will explore, we will build ships, we will visit again. We will construct science outposts. We will drive rovers. We will do radio astronomy. We will found companies. We will bolster industry. We will inspire. But ultimately, we will always choose Earth. We will always choose each other.
Terry Hart joined us now. He's a former NASA astronaut and director of the Aerospace Engineering Program at Lehigh University. I just have to ask, how are you feeling right now?
Wonderful, Lindsay. I mean, this is a great day, and the crew's done a wonderful job. And this rocket and the spacecraft is ready to go. They've proven that, and now the moon's getting smaller, the Earth's getting bigger. They're on their way home, and they can take a day off here now.
You know, Katie had mentioned to Tony that this is likely a wistful moment. Do you agree with that? And can you please help put that in context for anybody watching?
Yeah, I should say I knew Katie when she was a little baby. I trained with her mom, Anna. And Anna and I didn't fly in the same mission together, but we flew in T-38s a lot, you know. So it was nice to see her on TV tonight. And Bonnie Dunbar, too. I deployed a satellite on my mission. Bonnie Dunbar, who you had on a little earlier, actually captured that satellite and brought it back.
What a small
but yes,
world.
I mean, this is setting the stage now, and we're ready to. Yeah, exactly. But we set the stage now. We're ready to go to the South Pole of the Moon. It'll be a couple more years before we can start to assemble the equipment there. But it's going to be very exciting to reach out and start to live on the Moon.
And so I know that Mark was telling Tony that they have a well-earned light day tomorrow. But is there such a thing as a light day in space?
There are. I mean, this mission's a little unusual in that we try to get into space and take it easy in the first 2 days. This crew had a major workout that first day because they had 24 hours basically in Earth orbit to make sure everything was going well before they pulled the trigger with a TLI on the way to the Moon. And they did just a great job doing that. So it's a little bit of an unusual mission that way. And now they're finally having a chance to really relax and watch the Earth just get bigger and bigger.
We heard the excitement of Katie and Kristen. Is that a sentiment you share? Has this reinvigorated? Not that your love of space exploration has ever waned, but is this really a monumental moment to look back on?
Yeah, it is. And at this point in my life, I continue teaching at Lehigh, and my students, they're just wonderful. And they're so passionate about what they do. And a lot of them want to go into space themselves. You know, and I have so much fun teaching them and learning about the lessons that we had in the space shuttle and other programs, Apollo and all. In my flying time, I get a chance to bring all my Air Force experiences to my students here at Lehigh. It's a real privilege at this point in my life.
Terry Hart, it has been a privilege to get to talk to you. Thank you. Let's bring back CBS News space consultant Bill Harwood from the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Bill, I mean, it went off swimmingly.
Yeah, it really did. This entire mission, other than some maybe over-publicized trouble with the toilet earlier, this whole mission's gone off almost
You're the one with the byline.
Well, I'm just mentioning it, yeah, but you know that was a minor hiccup overall on a flight like this. So they've accomplished all of their major objectives to this point. It's really impressive, and I think that when you realize that anybody under 53 years old or thereabouts was not alive when people walked on the Moon during Apollo. And that same thing goes for a lot of the people working on this mission here at the Johnson Space Center and elsewhere. And I think a flight like this will serve to motivate a lot of those people. It makes it real. It's not just a history lesson. And I think that's going to go a long way. I was really impressed with how this mission's gone.
Well, I think at the end of Christina Cook's statements, just every part of this journey has been so exciting. But looking toward the future and thinking, yeah, one day we are going to bust through that record again and found companies and land back on the Moon and set up an outpost. I mean, there's so much to be excited for.
I'm excited too, but I do have a pinch of skepticism here. The plans are there, and the administrator, Jared Isaacman, is really trying to make this happen. He was sitting in mission control tonight as they came out of radio silence. You could see him in the back row smiling. But, this is really going to take the support of the American people, and through them, their representatives in Congress and succeeding presidential administrations. It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be easy. And it's going to require long-term support to make these dreams come true. And that's still TBD. We've got our fingers crossed that we'll have a vigorous space program, but we don't know yet how it's going to play out.
Okay. Well, Bill Harwood, thank you so much for documenting every step along the way. The 4 history-making Artemis II astronauts are now on their way back to Earth. Coming up, we'll look at what the crew will be doing for the final days of the mission before Splashdown Friday. You're watching The Daily Report. The Orion spacecraft is expected to splash down Friday, just after 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego. Recovery teams consisting of a ship, helicopters, and boats will retrieve the 4 astronauts. On the ship, the crew will undergo initial medical evaluations, and then they'll be taken to a naval station in San Diego before being flown to Texas. Retired NASA astronaut Bonnie Dunbar joins us once again. She took part in 5 space flights and spent more than 50 days in space. Bonnie, I apologize for having to cut you off earlier, but I just wanted, before we talk about their return, how you feel that the flyby went, the loss of comms, and then the regaining of comms.
Well, it seemed to go quite smoothly, which was good. Comm came back when it was supposed to. The crew looks like they're well situated and they're continuing with their operations. I'm very pleased that it's going as planned. You know, I teach space exploration here at Texas A&M University, so this is a great classroom example on the mission, and we've been talking about the future architectures as well.
What needs to be done before their re-entry? What's going to be done over the next few days?
Well, you know, of course, they're going to be putting their ship in proper order. They've got procedures, timelines they're following, some experiments that they'll be conducting. They'll be also doing a test of their pressure suits. The pressure suit allows them to have oxygen and pressure in the event that there's a problem with the spacecraft. And it actually is quite a long-lived pressure suit, several days. They're all custom made, which is nice. That allows them more flexibility and mobility. So they're on this flight plan. There's probably some other experiments they're going to be doing. They're going to be doing their exercise, but I think most importantly, being rested and ready for the reentry procedures.
I have to be really quick with you, Bonnie. Is there any part of you that's a little nervous for reentry, knowing the prior heat shield on Artemis I was a little more beat up?
Well, I think you always want to be prepared, and there's always risk. This is not a walk in the park, but I have confidence in the mission management team and the engineers that have put this together that they would not have given the go if they didn't feel confident in it. So TPS is an area that I'm pretty familiar with, so I'll be watching it closely.
We will talk to you then. Bonnie Dunbar, thank you so much. And still to come, retired NASA astronaut Katie Coleman joins me once again for her final thoughts. You're watching The Daily Report.
As we prepare to go out of radio communication, we're still to feel your love from Earth, and to all of you down there on Earth and around Earth. We love you from the moon.
That is not AI. That was the moment Artemis II crew member Victor Glover spoke with Mission Control right before NASA temporarily and expectedly lost control with the spacecraft as it went behind the moon. Retired NASA astronaut Katie Coleman joins us now. She flew 2 space shuttle missions, one of them including a 6-month stay at the ISS. I had asked you in the commercial break, you have children. What do you think we will see in their lifetimes?
I think they will certainly see people settled on the moon, people working on the moon, understanding and doing a lot of the practicing that we need to do in order to go to Mars. And I think we'll see people going to Mars.
And you think that there will be buy-in from the government, from the public for further exploration?
I don't think you could stop people. And you mentioned the government, but you know, even back in the 60s, there's companies that are actually, building to the government requirements, and now things are organized differently, but it's still, with the commercial companies, they are going. And I think this mission showed us just what can be done by people. I wanted to go back to something that Victor said there where he said, we're sending our love to everyone on Earth and everyone on the Earth and around it. And so he was actually also calling out to all the people living in space stations right now, which is an American space station and a Chinese space station. And I love that he thinks that way. He doesn't plan. He thinks that way and he speaks that way.
And you pick up on the subtleties to help us understand all of it. Do you think that without Artemis II, we would have those future missions? When you say they can't stop us, was Artemis II a huge step in that direction?
Absolutely. In that it is I'm retired from NASA now, but when I go back, there's something that is just clear in a visceral way that this is an organization that knows that they will be creating the situation where people are going to the moon and then going there not just to go around, but to stay, right? And it's a culture, and it will happen no matter what. Artemis II was the first step, and now it's almost like a relay race where Artemis II was the first person out, and there is someone now, a whole team of people getting Artemis III ready, and they are ready to go on the start line with their hand back there, and it's a very exciting time.
Well, Katie Coleman, it has been a privilege to get to see some of this through your eyes. Thank you so much for your expertise. And a programming note, we will have special coverage of the Artemis II splashdown Friday night right here on CBS News 24/7. Up next is CBS News 24/7 Primetime. Thank you for watching and experiencing this with us. I'm Lindsey Reiser. This has been a special edition of the Daily Report.